The rain came down in soft waves that Friday evening, tapping against the windows of Emma Miller's quiet suburban home in Portland. The sound used to comfort her, but tonight it only reminded her of how empty the house had become. Her son Ryan had left for college 2 months ago, and the silence that followed had been louder than she ever imagined. The laughter, the chaos, the endless noise that once filled the rooms, all gone. Now only the hum of the refrigerator and the rhythm of the rain kept her company. Emma moved slowly through the house, adjusting the little things Ryan had left behind, a photo frame on the shelf, his old football resting by the stairs, the faint smell of his cologne in the hallway. She'd raised him alone since his father passed away years ago. And though she was proud of him, the loneliness crept in at odd hours. The evenings were the hardest. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the dining table. The candlelight flickered against the rain-streaked window, and she let out a long sigh. She had friends, of course, and her job as an art teacher kept her busy. But when night came, there was an ache, a quiet longing for conversation, for laughter, for presence. Just as she was lost in thought, the doorbell rang. The sudden sound startled her. It was late, too late for visitors. She stood up, hesitated, then walked to the door. When she opened it, a rush of cold air came in, along with the smell of rain dots standing on her porch. Soaked from head to toe was a young man holding a small backpack. His hair was wet, his jacket dripping. It took her a second to recognize him. "Mrs. Miller," he said, smiling awkwardly. "It's Liam. Liam Parker." Emma blinked in surprise. "Liam? Oh my goodness. Come in, you'll catch a cold." She stepped aside quickly and he entered, shaking the rain from his hair. Liam Parker, her son's best friend since middle school. He'd practically grown up in her house, spending weekends playing video games with Ryan, eating all the snacks, and calling her mom Miller. She hadn't seen him since Ryan left for college. "What are you doing here?" she asked, handing him a towel. "I was driving back from Seattle," he explained, rubbing his hair dry. "Got caught in the storm. I remembered you lived nearby and thought I'd stop to say hi. I hope that's okay." Emma smiled gently. "Of course it's okay. You're always welcome here." He gave a relieved laugh. "I wasn't sure you'd remember me. How could I forget?" she said, motioning for him to sit. "You practically lived here half your childhood." They both laughed, and for a moment the house didn't feel so empty. She made him tea and placed a few cookies on the table, the same kind she used to bake when the boys were younger. The familiarity brought back a wave of memories, afternoons filled with noisy laughter, muddy shoes in the hallway, and Ryan and Liam arguing over the last cookie. "You haven't changed much," she said. Watching him as he sat across from her, he looked up, surprised. "I think I've changed a bit," he said with a small smile. His voice was deeper now, his features sharper. The once playful boy had turned into a young man with kind, steady eyes. Emma noticed it too, but quickly pushed the thought away. "I mean, you still have that same smile?" she added, sipping her tea. Liam chuckled. "You still make the best tea, Mrs. Miller." The room filled with a comfortable silence. The storm outside grew heavier, thunder rolling in the distance, but inside it was warmth. The warmth of memory, of familiarity. Emma felt something inside her ease. Like a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying had suddenly lifted. Liam looked around the room and smiled softly. "Everything looks the same," he said. "Even that painting." He pointed to a watercolor landscape she had painted years ago. "You still teach art?" She nodded. "Yes, kids still think paintbrushes are magic wands." He laughed, and she couldn't help but smile back. His laughter reminded her of Ryan's, only calmer, more mature. There was something steady about him now, the kind of calm that comes with growing up. "It's been strange," she said quietly. "The house feels too big now. Too quiet." He nodded slowly. "I get that. When I moved out, my mom said the same thing. She misses the noise." Emma looked at him thoughtfully. "How's your mom these days?" "Good," he said, then hesitated. "But she remarried and moved to Arizona. I don't go home much anymore." Her heart softened. "That must be hard," he shrugged, trying to sound casual. "I'm used to it. But this place, He glanced around again. It still feels like home. For a moment, their eyes met, a brief, silent connection that neither of them expected. There was no tension, just warmth. The comfort of two people who understood what it felt like to miss someone. Emma looked away, feeling a sudden rush of emotion. She stood and said quickly, "Let me get you a blanket. You're freezing." When she returned, he was standing by the window, watching the rain. His reflection in the glass looked thoughtful, almost sad. "You've grown so much," she said quietly, handing him the blanket. "It's strange seeing you like this." I smiled, wrapping it around himself. "You mean without braces and messy hair?" She laughed softly. "Exactly." They stood there for a while, listening to the rain. The storm outside rattled the windows, but inside everything felt still. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "You can stay the night if you want. It's too dangerous to drive in this weather." He looked surprised but grateful. "Are you sure?" "Of course," she said. "There's a guest room upstairs. It's dry and warm." He smiled. That same boyish grin she remembered. "Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Really?" She nodded, feeling something she hadn't in a long time. Comfort. Connection. It wasn't romantic or complicated, just human. A reminder that she was still part of someone's world, even if just for a night. As Liam carried his bag upstairs, Emma stood in the hallway, listening to his footsteps fade. A soft smile touched her lips. The house didn't feel empty anymore when she turned off the lights. Storm continued outside, but inside there was calm, a quiet sense that something had changed. She didn't know what it was yet, but she felt it deep in her heart. That night, for the first time since Ryan left, Emma slept peacefully, knowing that sometimes life surprises us in the smallest, most unexpected ways, like a familiar face appearing at your door on a rainy night, bringing warmth back into the places you thought had gone cold, and though she didn't realize it yet, this simple visit from her son's friend would soon stir emotions she thought she'd buried long ago. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, warming the living room where Liam sat with a cup of coffee. Emma walked in quietly, her hair still damp from the shower, wearing a soft gray sweater and jeans. She smiled when she saw him awake. "Morning," she said, her voice gentle. "Did you sleep well?" "Yeah," Liam replied, smiling back. "That bed's a lot more comfortable than the one in my apartment." Emma chuckled. "Well, I'm glad. You must be hungry. I made breakfast." He followed her to the kitchen, and the smell of pancakes filled the air. She moved around the kitchen with ease, just like she used to when he and Ryan were younger. He couldn't help but smile at the sight. It felt familiar, almost like stepping into the past as they sat down to eat. They talked about simple things: college, work, old friends. Emma listened as Liam told her about his job at a small design company and how he was trying to balance life and bills. She laughed when he told her about accidentally spilling coffee on his boss on the first day. Still as clumsy as ever, she teased. "Some things never change," he said. Grinning, their conversation flowed naturally, easy and warm. Every laugh, every small smile felt like a gentle reminder of how comforting human connection could be. After breakfast, Emma walked to the living room to tidy up. On the shelf were old photos, Ryan's graduation, summer trips, birthdays. Liam's eyes caught one of him and Ryan as teenagers, their faces smeared with cake. He picked it up, laughing softly. "We looked like such idiots back then." Emma glanced at the picture and smiled. "You two were always trouble." He looked at her thoughtfully. "You were always patient with us. Most parents would have kicked us out for breaking half the things in this house." "I thought about it a few times," she joked. Then, more softly, "But I liked having you both around. You made this house feel alive." For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. The light from the window touched Emma's face, and Liam saw something different, not just the caring mother he'd known, but a woman who carried grace and warmth, someone who had given so much of herself for others. "You know," he said quietly, "Ryan was lucky. You gave him a good life." Emma looked at him, her smile fading into a thoughtful expression. "I did my best. It wasn't always easy, but I tried." He nodded. You did better than most." The sincerity in his tone caught her off guard. She looked at him and noticed how mature he'd become. The boy who once laughed too loudly was now calm, confident, and kind. "You've grown up well, Liam," she said. "Guess I had good examples," he replied. His voice soft. She turned away, trying to hide the small smile tugging at her lips. There was a warmth in his words that stayed with her, a kindness she hadn't felt directed at her in a long time. The day passed easily. The rain had stopped, leaving the air cool and fresh. They spent the afternoon going through old photo albums, each picture bringing a new memory. There were stories about Ryan's first soccer game, the school play where Liam forgot his lines, and the summer barbecue that ended with a broken sprinkler and a flooded backyard. Liam laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. "I forgot about that day." Emma laughed too, the sound light and unguarded. "You two were soaked head to toe. I thought the neighbors would call the fire department." It felt good to laugh like that again, not polite laughter, but the kind that comes from somewhere deep inside. For Emma, it was a feeling she hadn't realized she missed later in the evening. They sat on the porch, watching the sun set behind the trees. The sky glowed orange and gold, and the cool breeze carried the scent of wet earth. It was peaceful, a kind of peace she hadn't known in a long while. Liam glanced at her, his voice quiet. "You seem happier today." Emma smiled faintly. "I think I just forgot how nice it feels to have company." "I get that," he said. "I've been on my own a lot too lately. Sometimes silence gets too loud." She nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. There was a brief pause. Then he added, "You know, your house feels the same, warm, safe. I used to love coming here. I didn't say it then, but I think it's because this place felt like home." "Oh." Emma's chest tightened. His tone wasn't romantic, just honest. But the words touched something deep inside her, something that had been waiting quietly to be seen. "Thank you, Liam," she said softly. "That means more than you know." He smiled, eyes warm. "You always made people feel cared for. You still do?" "Scoo." She looked away, her heart unexpectedly full. There was no tension, no awkwardness, only a quiet connection that bridged the years between them. As the evening darkened, a sound of crickets filled the air. They talked about Ryan, about life, about dreams that had changed over time. Emma listened as Liam spoke about wanting to do more. Maybe start his own design business someday, maybe travel. His voice carried a kind of hope that made her smile. "You'll do it," she said, with certainty. "You've always had that spark." "Key," he said, glancing at her. "You believed in me even when I didn't. That helped more than you think." A throat tightened. She hadn't realized the small impact she'd made on him. As night settled in, a gentle silence wrapped around them. The porch light flickered softly, casting a golden glow over their faces. Emma stood and said, "Come on, it's getting late. Let's go inside." They returned to the living room where the soft hum of the clock filled the space. Emma gathered the photo albums and placed them back on the shelf. Liam stood nearby, his expression calm but thoughtful. "I should probably head out early tomorrow," he said quietly. She nodded. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need." "Thanks," he said, then hesitated. "You know, I didn't plan to stop here. I don't know. Something told me to." Emma smiled, her eyes kind. "Sometimes life sends us where we need to go." Their eyes met for a moment, just long enough for something unspoken to pass between them. It wasn't romance, not quite. It was understanding. A meeting of two lonely hearts who found comfort in each other's company. When Liam finally went upstairs, Emma stood alone in the living room. The rain had stopped completely, and the air felt fresh again. She looked around at the soft glow of her home and realized how different it felt tonight. It wasn't just the presence of cars. It wasn't just the presence of car. As you're good, wasn't like you're gonna die. Look at this. And we all know I've been exploring. As we alive, we of my cars. She looked around at the soft glow of her home. And we like to do Seagend. I tell Seagend, I call with Jeff. I do we callin with C Jack. C Jeff. Callin with C Jack. Can I to have two white do we all with us CD we all with C truck me so I we with C Galisha see you with I skit I decide you to we get us to see you to lice for no guy with you to I have a fake we can lead the week another person. It was the warmth of being seen again, of being appreciated, even in small ways. For years, she'd been a mother, a teacher, a caretaker, but tonight, she'd been herself. As she turned off the lights and headed to bed, she caught herself smiling. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in months, she didn't feel lonely. Some visits, she thought, don't need a reason. They just happen, and sometimes they remind us that our hearts are still open to connection. No matter how long we've been alone and somewhere upstairs. Liam was thinking the same thing, wondering why a simple stop on a rainy night had begun to mean so much more. The night grew quiet after dinner, though the wind outside carried the sound of distant thunder. The house felt warm, glowing softly under the light of a few candles. The power had flickered twice already, and Emma had lit the candles just in case. Liam sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, while Emma placed 2 mugs of tea on the table. "You still like chamomile?" she asked, sitting beside him. "Always," he said with a smile. "You remembered?" "I remember a lot of things." She replied lightly, though her tone carried a softness that lingered in the air. A crack of thunder rolled through the night, followed by rain tapping against the windows again. They both turned toward the sound. "It's starting up again," Emma said. "Looks like I won't be driving tonight," he joked. She smiled. "I don't think you should risk it." For a moment, neither spoke. The steady sound of rain filled the silence between them. The flickering candlelight painted soft shadows across the room, and the warmth from the nearby fireplace made everything feel strangely calm. "You know," Liam said quietly, "I really missed this house. Not just because of Ryan. It's the feeling here, the peace, the warmth. You don't get that everywhere." Emma glanced at him, surprised by his tone. "It's kind of you to say." He shrugged, looking down. "When I was younger, I didn't notice it. But growing up, I realized not every home feels like this. You always made it a place people wanted to be." His words touched her more than she expected. She looked at him not as Ryan's friend, but as a young man who understood her kindness and the effort it took to create a sense of home. "I tried," she said quietly. "I guess I just wanted Ryan to have what I didn't." Liam nodded, sensing there was a deeper story behind her words. "You did a good job," he said softly. "Ryan turned out great, and I know a lot of that was because of you." Emma smiled faintly, but her eyes shimmered with emotion. Compliments were something she rarely received anymore. And coming from someone who had seen her through the years, it felt genuine. Another rumble of thunder shook the window. The lights flickered and then went out completely, leaving only the candle flames dancing in the dark. Liam laughed quietly. "Guess it's one of those nights." I came aside, shaking her head. "I guess so. Just when everything was calm." "It's okay," he said. "I kind of like it this way. Feels peaceful." They sat together, surrounded by shadows and soft golden light. The rain grew heavier, blurring the world outside. Emma leaned back against the couch, relaxing for the first time in what felt like ages. Liam glanced at her, noticing how tired yet graceful she looked. There was a quiet strength in her, the kind that came from years of holding things together. "Can I tell you something?" he asked suddenly. "Of course," she said, turning toward him. He hesitated. "When I was younger, I used to look at you and think, you were the calmest person I'd ever met. No matter what happened, you always had this way of making things okay. I didn't understand it then, but now I think I get it." Emma felt her breath catch slightly. "And what's that?" He met her eyes. "You put everyone else first. That's why this place feels warm, because of you." Her heart tightened. The sincerity in his voice left her quiet. She didn't know how to respond. Not because the words were wrong, but because they were unexpectedly true. She gave a small smile. That's kind of you to say, but I'm just doing what mothers do. Maybe, he said, but not everyone does it with the same heart. For a moment, the room seemed to still. The rain, the thunder, the candlelight, everything blurred into the background. It wasn't a romantic silence, but it was deep, honest, and full of feeling. "You've grown into a good man, Liam," she said softly. He smiled, but his eyes didn't leave hers. "You helped with that, whether you realize it or not." The warmth in his gaze made her look away, not out of discomfort, but from the emotion that suddenly rose inside her. She hadn't expected this conversation, hadn't expected to feel something shift. Inside her heart, he noticed her silence and said gently, "I didn't mean to say too much." "No," she said quickly, "you didn't. It's just been a long time since anyone said something kind like that." He nodded, understanding. "Then I'm glad I said it." The rain eased a little. Emma stood and walked to the window, looking out at the wet street. The world looked softer in the dim light, the way it does after hours of rain. Liam joined her, standing beside her quietly. "It's strange," she said, her voice low. "When Ryan left for college, I thought I'd finally have time to rest, maybe enjoy the quiet. But it turns out, silence can be heavier than noise." He looked at her, his voice just as quiet. "I know that feeling. You think you want peace, but sometimes it just feels like being forgotten." She turned her head, meeting his eyes. There was an honesty there that made her chest ache. "You feel that way too?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah. My mom moved away. Most of my friends are busy. It's easy to feel like you're just passing through everyone's life." Oh, Emma's heart softened. "You're not alone in that," she said. Their eyes lingered for a second, not in romance, but in recognition. Two people who understood the same kind of loneliness. The lights flickered back on, filling the room with soft yellow light. The spell broke slightly, but neither of them moved away. "Guess the storm's passing," she said quietly. "Yeah," he replied. "But I think I'll remember this night for a while." She smiled, trying to lighten the moment. "Because the power went out." He laughed softly. "Because it didn't feel lonely." The simplicity of his words made her heart swell. She wanted to say something, to tell him how much that meant, but all she could manage was a quiet "me too." They sat back down, sipping the last of their tea. The world outside was calm again, the thunder fading into silence. Emma glanced at Liam, the boy she once saw as her son's mischievous friend, and now saw someone entirely different. Still kind, still gentle, but grown. Someone who carried empathy and warmth. When the clock struck 11, she stood up. "Should get some sleep. It's been a long day." He nodded, smiling. "Good night, Mrs. Miller." "Good night, Liam," she said softly. As he went upstairs, she watched him disappear into the hallway light. Then she turned off the lamps, letting the room rest in quiet. Her heart, however, wasn't quiet at all. That night, Emma lay awake, listening to the soft patter of rain. She thought of the things Liam said, the way he looked at her, not with judgment, not with pity, but with genuine respect. It reminded her that she was still capable of being seen, still capable of connection. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. The storm outside had calmed, but inside something had awakened. Not love, not romance, but a gentle realization that life still had moments of unexpected warmth waiting to be felt. And as she drifted to sleep, she knew this visit had changed. Something in her, a small but powerful reminder that even the quietest hearts could still be stirred by kindness and connection. The next morning began quietly. The storm had passed, leaving the air clear and cool. The golden light of the early sun slipped through the curtains, painting the kitchen in a soft glow. Emma was already awake, standing by the stove, frying eggs and toasting bread. She moved calmly, her mind still replaying the conversations from the night before. There was something about Liam's words, the honesty, the kindness that had stayed with her. It had been a long time since anyone had made her feel seen beyond her role as a mother or teacher. But she reminded herself it was just a warm human moment. Nothing more. Still, The thought of him leaving soon made her heart ache in a way she couldn't quite explain. She poured 2 cups of coffee and set the table. A few minutes later, Liam came down the stairs, his hair still damp from a shower, wearing a simple gray t-shirt and jeans. He looked relaxed but slightly hesitant, as if unsure how the morning should feel after the quiet intensity of the night before. "Morning," Emma said with a smile. "Morning," he replied, returning it. "You didn't have to make breakfast." She waved off the comment. Old habits. Sit down before it gets cold. They ate quietly at first, the sound of birds outside filling the silence. There was comfort in the ordinary rhythm, clinking forks, the smell of coffee, the hum of a new day. But beneath it, an unspoken awareness lingered. Liam looked around the kitchen and smiled softly. "Everything here feels frozen in time, like nothing's changed." Emma laughed gently. "Some things shouldn't change. They remind us where we came from." He nodded. "I guess that's why this place still feels like home." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "You really mean that?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "You made it that way." Her heart tightened. There it was again, that warmth in his tone, that quiet sincerity that reached places she didn't expect. She looked away for a moment, steadying herself. "That's kind of you to say." After breakfast, Liam offered to help clean up. They worked side by side, moving easily around each other. It felt natural to people sharing a space. No rush, no awkwardness. When they finished, he leaned against the counter and said, "I should probably get going soon. The roads will be clear now." Emma nodded, trying to sound casual. "Of course. You've got a long drive ahead." But inside, she felt a small pang of sadness. She wanted to say, "Stay a little longer." Yet, she knew she couldn't. It wasn't her place. She followed him to the hallway as he packed his things. The duffel bag that looked so small when he arrived now felt heavier somehow, not with things, but with the quiet weight of what had been shared between them. "I really appreciate you letting me stay," Liam said. "It meant more than you know." Emma smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me. I was happy to have company." He hesitated, looking at her with that same thoughtful expression from the night before. "You know, you've always been one of the kindest people I've known. You never changed." She laughed softly, though her eyes shimmered. "I've changed plenty. I just learned to hide it better." He tilted his head. "No, I think you've just grown stronger." The honesty in his words caught her again. Simple, pure, but full of meaning. She didn't know how to respond, so she just nodded, her voice soft. "Thank you, Liam." He zipped his bag, then paused. "Before I go, can I tell you something?" "Of course." He looked down, searching for the right words. "Last night when we were talking, it made me realize how much people like you matter. The ones who care quietly, who give warmth without asking for anything back. I don't think people tell you that enough." Emma felt her throat tighten. His words touched a part of her that had been empty for too long. "That's very sweet of you," she managed. "You have no idea how much that means." He smiled. "Good, then maybe I've returned a little of what you gave me all those years ago." For a moment, they stood in silence. It wasn't awkward, just full of emotions neither could fully name. Gratitude, fondness, strange kind of affection that came from shared understanding rather than romance. Liam slung his bag over his shoulder and walked to the door. Emma followed him, the sound of his footsteps echoing softly through the hallway. When he reached the door, he turned back and smiled one last time. "You know," he said, "sometimes life surprises us with the people who make us feel alive again." Emma looked at him, her eyes warm and soft. "You're right," she said quietly. "And sometimes those people show up when we least expect them." He gave a small nod, as if her words meant more than she realized. Then he stepped out into the cool morning air. The street glistened from the rain and sunlight bounced off puddles, turning everything golden. "Drive safe," she called after him. He waved, smiling. "I will, and thank you for everything." She stood at the door, watching as he walked down the street toward his car. Each step he took felt like a slow fade back into the world beyond her quiet home. And yet instead of sadness, there was peace. When he finally disappeared around the corner, Emma closed the door softly. The silence returned, but it no longer felt heavy. It felt calm, full of quiet gratitude. She walked back into the kitchen, the morning light still pouring in. The 2 mugs from breakfast sat on the table. She didn't move them right away. Instead, she sat down, wrapped her hands around one, and smiled to herself. In that moment, she realized that what Liam had brought wasn't just conversation or nostalgia. He had reminded her that she was still alive inside, still capable of feeling joy, warmth, and connection. The visit had been simple, innocent, but powerful. She thought of Ryan and how he would laugh if he knew his old friend had brought such light back into her life without even trying. Later that day, Emma went about her chores, laundry, dusting, watering the plants, but everything felt lighter. She caught herself humming, something she hadn't done in months. Even the quiet corners of the house seemed to breathe easier that evening. As the sun set, she sat by the same window where she had watched the storm. The world outside glowed with soft orange light. She thought about how life had changed, not in big ways, but in small, important ones. Sometimes, she realized, people don't enter our lives to stay forever. Sometimes they come just to remind us of who we are, to awaken something we thought was gone. Liam had done that for her. He had walked into her home as her son's old friend and left as someone who reminded her of her own worth, her own quiet strength. Emma smiled to herself as she looked out at the fading sky. The rain had washed everything clean, the streets, the garden, even her heart. She didn't know if she would see Liam again, but she didn't need to. What mattered was that, for a brief moment, life had surprised her with warmth again. And that was enough. That night, as she turned off the lights and got ready for bed, the house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt alive, not with noise, but with memory, comfort, and the quiet reminder that kindness and connection can still find their way back to us, even after the longest silence. And when she finally closed her eyes, a peaceful thought crossed her mind sometimes. The smallest visits leave the biggest marks on our hearts.